Boxing sucks, you guys, and there's no secret about it. Boxing is 100 times more inferior than UFC, and the Garcia Haney card as a whole. The main event was great, but the Garcia Haney card is a perfect example as to why boxing will never again compete with the UFC unless they're throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at these fighters and these venues from Saudi money. That is the only way they can even compete for the UFC for just one weekend. Because on average, the UFC will trump the boxing world in almost every way. First off, tell me boxing's more exciting, because if you do, you're lying. These are just numbers, first of all. So, over a 25-minute span, Gaethje Holloway, look at the strike numbers, look at the strike efficiency. And this is also with leg kicks, body kicks, kicks in general. Now look at this. 40% and 37%, a whole 10 and 20% less about, with 87 strikes and 106 versus 103 and 181. So we're looking at about 80 more strikes and 10 to 20% higher efficiency landed. So that's not even including takedowns and stuff, which didn't happen in this fight. But you're never getting moments like these in boxing. You're never going to get Demetrius Johnson picking a person up, throwing him in the air, throwing him on the ground, mid-air transitioning to an armbar, and securing a submission win. And you're never getting Joaquin Buckley's kick, left body kick, getting caught, then jumping off the canvas with his right leg to spinning heel kick knockout his opponent. You will never see that in boxing. Granted, Garcia Haney, Garcia was landing good knockdowns, but other than the knockdowns, nothing was going on. Absolutely. Garcia was showing up in a corner, shoving his ass in Devin Haney's face. Devin Haney, pillow hands. All you do is punch and you have no power. That is unacceptable. And yeah, man, the co-main event, another great example. Nobody got wobbled. That fight wasn't interesting for 1 second. Only thing that made it interesting was that the underdog was winning. But I'll talk about that fight later, because it brings up another point as to why boxing is 100% inferior. Moving on. There are too many belts in that sport, man. The UFC, one belt. The one belt in the division. BMF belt doesn't count. That's a fun belt. But and it's just under the same promotion anyway, so they can make the BMF belt and the real champion fight for it. But the problem with this is all these guys, they have different fighters in their rankings, and once a fighter wins that belt, they're no longer ranked in any one of these, and they don't have to fight the champion that holds these belts. And a lot of the time, it doesn't happen over contractual and money disputes between promoters, because they're going to be promoted by different people. And yeah, which brings me to the next point. These too many belts cause the best don't necessarily fight the best. Now here, we're going to look at Dustin Poirier's run of the title to fight Khabib. So he's got to fight Jim Miller, tenured in the UFC. He's been around for 100, 200, and 300, and he's always been around that, I want to say like that like 15 to 30 range when it comes to fighter rankings. Then he's fighting Eddie Alvarez, ends in no contest, former UFC lightweight champion. Then he's fighting Anthony Pettis, former UFC lightweight champion, fighting Gaethje, who goes on to become interim UFC champion. Eddie Alvarez, like we said, former UFC champion. Max Holloway, at the time, current featherweight, going for a super fight and double champ status. And then he goes on to fight Khabib. Like, this is just the best fighting the best all the time. They're making the best matches possible. We don't have any contractual agreements where Khabib's got to go and fight. He doesn't have to go fight Joe Selecki. He doesn't have to go fight Grant Dawson because it's in his contract. No, Khabib has to fight Dustin Poirier. He had to fight McGregor. He had to fight Gaethje. He had to fight these killers. He had to fight Barboza. He had to go fight. Only if you fight at the Khabib's start to his career was a little iffy, but The only iffy fight he took was Al Iaquinta, however you say his name. But that was because everybody else got injured. Another great example, Justin Gaethje. This is his first fight in the UFC down here against Michael Johnson, who, what was he ranked? 5 or 6? He was up there in the rankings. Justin Gaethje has never fought anybody, outside of the top 10, ever. Every single opponent, he was in the top 10. He was ranked number 10, I think, or number 9. And he's never fought outside of the top 10. Yeah, it's just, and that's his whole UFC career. He got into fight for the belt, was it twice, right? Yeah, this is for the belt, but Oliveira missed weight. But yeah, like they truly make the best fight the best in the UFC. And right here, we're gonna move, and I think Justin Gaethje what was Justin Gaethje's record? Hold on, 1 second. So yeah, going into the UFC, Justin Gaethje was 17-0. His 18th professional fight was against number 4 ranked Michael Johnson. Now, this is Canelo. Now, I love Canelo. I love watching Canelo fight, but let's just take a look at the guys he fought. So this is his first career fight. You're gonna fight bums. You're gonna start off fighting bums, right? 1-0, 2-0, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He's 16-0. He is 16-0. Fighting an 8-21 guy. 17-0. 18-0. By now, Justin Gaethje's fighting Michael Johnson, top-ranked UFC lightweight contender. They're having Canelo fight 4-15 Francisco Villanueva. Absurd. 19-0, 20-0, 5-17. Who he goes to a split decision with, by the way. Just throwing that out there. This guy looks pretty decent. The champion is shit, but it just goes to show that like the build-up in boxing and the build-up in MMA, a lot different. And the UFC also will have guys that are like, I can't use Alex Pereira as an example because he fought kickboxing. But if you're looking at Bo Nickel, he's 6-0 at this point. He's gonna be fighting top 15 guys by the time he's 8-0, 9-0. He'll be getting if he keeps winning, he'll probably get a title shot by the time he's 12-0. Like MMA, they actually make the best fight the best. I get they're building Bo Nickel up by making him fight lower competition, but he's not fighting guys that are 5-17. He's fighting guys that are 10-4 in his 6th pro fight, and it's a lot different than boxing. Boxing, they don't have the best fight the best. They stat pad and pick and choose their opponents to build up their record. Nah, MMA, you gotta earn that. You gotta earn your record. Other than Khabib, but that's very different. And yeah, moving on. If anybody saw this fight, these judges in the sport of boxing, just the whole sport in general, it is so rigged. Arnold Barboza, number 1 contender in whatever, I forget the weight division. Sean McComb, I think, number 7. They were hyping up Arnold Barboza to go fight Devin Haney after this. This was a disastrous weekend for that matchup, by the way. Barboza versus Haney. Barboza was the backup fighter if Garcia or Haney couldn't make the walk. But they did, so he's fighting this guy, Sean McComb. The only correct scorecard over here is 98-92 for Sean McComb. How they gave this decision to Arnold Barboza is beyond me. Beyond me. I don't know either. This is another thing. The number 1 ranked contender, I've never heard of this guy. I've never seen his name. Most people, you go up to him, you see some people who are like casuals when it comes to combat sports. They'll know who Dustin Poirier is. They'll know Charles Oliveira. They might know Arman Tsarukyan. They're going to know Justin Gaethje. They're going to know Max Holloway. They're going to know most of the top 5. They'll know Islam, he's the champ. They're going to know most of the top 5. I know some champions of boxing. Some champions. They're just not as well known. They're not marketed well. Unless you're one of the cash cows. Unless you're Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, or Joshua, Fury, and Usyk, and Ngannou at this point. I don't really like. You're not gonna get known that much. Like obviously, I know who Lomachenko is. I know who like Andy Ruiz is. I know who like some of these guys are, but they're not marketed very well because there's nothing to them, man. They're a bunch of bots, and yeah, they don't bring in numbers. There's just more name value in the UFC. Moving on. Fight negotiations in boxing are so bad. Why Anthony? I forgot Anthony Joshua. I think why Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury haven't fought. I don't know. That's a big matchup they can make for the UK. They could put that in the O2 Arena. They could probably put that in Wembley. But yeah, it's because of the belts these guys held, the promoters, the money negotiations, everything. Because they're not all under one organization, that this fight doesn't get made, and it might never get made now that Anthony Joshua lost to Usyk, because Tyson Fury is going to fight Usyk, and if Fury loses, they could fight in a number one contender fight, but will they do that? I don't know. I have no idea. This is a fight that should have been made, but it doesn't because of butting heads when it comes to promoters and organizations and belts and everything like that. It just brings the point further, the best don't truly fight the best. And also the contractual obligations that some of these fights have, like fighters have to fight for belts because it's in their contracts, they get a title shot. Like, that's bullshit. Bullshit. You earn your title shot. You're not guaranteed a title shot. If you want a title shot, you win. That's how you get it. That's how it should be. And yeah, bullshit. Moving on. Fighter pay. People love to come with the UFC for fighter pay. And they say, oh, look at boxing. Look at what Ryan Garcia made. Look at what Devin Haney made. Look at what Tank Davis makes. That's because for them to compete with the UFC at this point, they have to throw all their cash at their top dogs for a good press conference. They don't pay the undercard that much. You know, we can look at the numbers. Average payout for a UFC fighter, $146,673, while the average boxer is making pennies. Only reason boxing pay is labeled as better is because the top 10 to 15 are going to be making $10 million plus on a pay-per-view, and everybody else is going to be begging for food in the parking lot after their fight. They're going to go fight, they're going to get hurt, and they're going to be asking for tips in the parking lot. They're going to be holding the cup up, shaking the tip jar full of coins, asking for some tips. Because boxing doesn't pay as much as the UFC. It doesn't pay as much as people like to make it think. Like Jake Paul, why are you not advertising for higher boxing pay, but only UFC pay? Beyond me. Because the UFC, that's another thing. People come in after 12 fights. Say you come in the UFC 9-3, you win in your Contender Series fight. You're coming into the UFC making 12-12, and making 12-12. That's a lot better than you'd get if you're a 23-0 boxer that doesn't have a lot of name value. Like, you're still probably not making that much. Or if you're like a 15-0 boxer. You're still fighting regional or really early prelims of a pay-per-view, and you're not going to be making money. It just won't be there because you have no name value. The UFC, you're locked into a contract, and you win that 10-10 fight, you can renegotiate. I want 15-15. You win again, 20-20. You win again, 30-30. Yeah, it keeps going up the more you win. Boxing, shady promoters just going to rip you off. Moving on. Boxing, a lot more dangerous. Now, knock on wood. I don't want anybody to, pass away in combat sports, but if you look at the numbers, people, just as recently as a few years ago, are still passing away. And this is major. People definitely pass away in MMA on a yearly basis that you just don't know about. Same with boxing. But main fighters, like pay-per-view event level fights, there are people still dying because all of the damage is focused on the head and the 10 count. The 10 count is one of the worst things in any sport ever because it allows you to take so much more unnecessary damage. Like the amount of damage Devin Haney took against Ryan Garcia in an MMA fight, after that first knockdown, maybe the second, that fight's over. And Devin Haney sustained so much less damage than he took against Ryan Garcia, because the amount of times he's able to just keep getting up to fight is absolutely horrific. That he's just allowed to keep fighting after getting his ass beat so badly. But in MMA, you're going to get grappling too. That's another thing, there's grappling. But if you get knocked down, you get fouled up on the ground with a couple punches, you're out. You're not, maybe not even out, but you're losing. You're getting punched in the ground, ref steps in, you avoid major damage, and you lose the fight, but you're pretty much intact. You're okay to go. You can start training, a month later after your concussion's all healed up. And another thing is the grappling. The grappling takes the fight out off the feet. You're on the ground. Punches aren't landing as hard. And it's still exciting. Sometimes it can be exciting. Good scrambles, it can be exciting. But it's just a lot safer in general. And if somebody does get knocked out cold, then they're knocked out cold. They're not getting back up. That's almost better, getting knocked out cold, because then you're not taking more unnecessary punishment. When you're already dazed, you already have a concussion, your brain's the size of a hot air balloon, all swelled up. You can't even fit in your skull anymore, and you're still taking punches to the face, to the jaw. And yeah, it's just a lot safer MMA, and it's more enjoyable to watch, and it is better in every aspect when it comes to the fight game, other than the top 1% of fighter pay. But that is literally the only thing that's different. And yeah, at the end of the day, UFC beats boxing via 50-35 decision, 10-7 across 5 rounds on all the judges' scorecards, me being all the judges. UFC wins by unanimous decision. So yeah, this is why boxing sucks, and the UFC will always be better unless boxing makes some major changes. Look, I hope for the sake of the boxing fighters and boxing fans that are struggling to watch their sport right now that it gets better, but I don't know. I don't see how you beat the UFC out when it comes to entertainment value, exciting fights, and big names. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. I'll have a UFC 300 fights to make video out tomorrow. Yeah, sorry I was late on that, but college final season heating up. It is what it is. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.